Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Education Magazine, the podcast where we discuss the issues that you are wanting to discuss and to answer some of the questions that you present to us. And I'm here today with the great and wonderful Charlotte Hadfield. You've met her before. You've seen her on the road with me, some of you who've actually come and joined me. Charlotte, how lovely it is to see you once again.
Hello, Mike. It's lovely to be back.
Well, did we have a lot of fun on our road trip?
We did. It was a really lovely experience to actually meet the people who normally we see on your Facebook and, maybe in tribunal. It was a really lovely experience.
I got to say, I totally agree. I mean, and the other thing is, suppose some people wonder, why do I do these events? And I suppose one of the reasons why we do these events could perhaps be epitomised by the lady that you will see now, who will tell you why she came to the event. So let's watch that, Charlotte. Let's see what she says.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is a very complex situation and I'm nervous, so the laughter is not because the whole thing is funny, it is because it's been actually quite an ordeal and has had a heavy impact on our entire family and our children. I'm a former teacher who met the needs of hopefully every child that I had in my care. I saw their individual needs as being crucial to being appreciated, respected and accommodated. And then fast forward to my own children having special educational needs and disabilities and going into education, they just didn't have the same experience. It's been incredibly difficult to accept that when I was in that job, although I know that some teachers, not all teachers are equal, most of them really did endeavour to make school a really safe and engaging and wonderful place for children so that they would also grow in confidence, self-esteem and engage with learning. Our experience as parents has sadly not been the same. They have, due to their diagnoses, experienced a lot of discrimination in the terms of presumption of low competence, staff not being adequately trained in their conditions, or having very outdated training that they believe is adequate. So for me, when I was teaching, the emphasis was on reflection and on continuing professional development, and it seems that somewhere along the line these things are not valued or are not enforced. Our children went to a mainstream school and the mainstream school did try their absolute best, so I can't criticise their efforts, and actually one of our children had a reception teacher who was fantastic, and if you could mould her and make a lot of teachers like her, then actually we wouldn't have the crisis we have in the education system. However, sadly that has not been the case everywhere. And our children were placed into a specific autistic resource base led by, I'm going to say, self-proclaimed specialist teachers. These individuals were specialist in title, but they didn't hold the values or training or respect that you would expect from such staff. They have not treated us as parents with the respect that we deserve, and they've not treated the children with the dignity and respect that they deserve also. They have been very limited by their own ideas of what autism is, and they have tried to fit our children into their understanding of it, into a very, very limited box of understanding, rather than see them as the capable human beings they are, and to actually create opportunities and learning that is interest-led and individualised to their needs. So this is obviously just the tip of the iceberg because I'm trying to give you an overview of the kind of treatment they've been subjected to. But our concern and why we've come to see Michael Charles this evening is that this is a widespread issue. We feel quite helpless as parents. We are challenging the school, we are challenging the local authority, but we can see this systemic ableism everywhere. And it's even in speech and language therapy reports, it's in occupational therapy reports, it's even from educational psychology reports. We often believe that these people have the education, training and attitudes, I suppose, that they are best placed to support our children, but all we have come across is ableism consistently. And our children have now actually had to be removed from the school system. They have a range of diagnoses from autism, PDA, pathological demand avoidance, for which I'm an advocate. I think if I said ADHD, I'm sorry, I'm losing my place here. Sensory processing disorder, Tourette syndrome, and they've had different experiences of discrimination in the school system as a result of these. So just giving a brief example, my child with pathological demand avoidance was placed into a setting, and we made it very clear what his needs were. We gave them emails, we gave them guidance from other professionals. As much as we could, we tried to give them insight so that they would understand and be able to accommodate the needs of our children. We understood that he could be quite difficult in terms of providing care for and support for, because it's a profile that isn't widely understood. But our input was not seen as valuable, and it wasn't welcomed. It was seen as a threat. It was almost seen as an attempt to undermine staff, when really the key is to collaborate and work together, and they couldn't do that. And I am going to say that in our experience, from our own opinion, we feel there's a lot of ego in the system, and that we need to break down that ego and work together to be able to support the children, who should really be at the heart of everything and sadly are not. My other child with Tourette syndrome received discrimination because staff, again, did not train, did not listen to our advice or other professionals, decided that they knew better just because they have those specialist titles, and they discriminated against him in terms of not believing his Tourette's or tics were legitimate, not understanding that Tourette's extended beyond just tics and could be disproportionate reactions or compulsive behaviour. And every day, if I'm truthful, the wording I would use is that he was harassed for having a condition that they didn't train in. And as Michael said in the talk this evening, the school have failed on so many accounts, but one of them is the making best endeavours. They have not made best endeavours. They were not anticipatory. They did not prepare. They had everything they needed to be able to support these children, and they chose not to do it. We pushed for training from day one. They actively chose not to, whilst promising us the world. And the result is that we now have 2 children who are traumatised, have emotionally based school avoidance, and we have had to become a one-income family in order for us to be able to support them at home. We know that they are safe, and we have no trust in the education system after our experiences, and we will never release them back into this system. But as parents, we do advocate still for educators to have better training that is up to date and neurodiversity affirming, and to not see these children as deficits, to help them build on their strengths and become really confident in their neurodivergent identities. And we really want to help people understand them, understand children like them, and help them really realise their full potential. There's so much more, but I think in a nutshell that explains it quite well, hopefully. So.
Well, Charlotte, that really is one of the things, isn't it? I mean, some people say that those who are entrusted to support children are not really adequately trained. Do you find that too, that you're finding some people are purporting to be experts when they really are not really an expert in the particular subject matter? I
mean, I think we see that in various different stages of the process, don't we? I mean, we know that some parents will rely on advocacy services, some of which are extremely good, lay advocacy services, some of which are undoubtedly extremely good, some of which are not necessarily as good. We know that there is wide variation on the quality of experts in terms of specialist teachers, psychologists, speech and language therapists. We know as lawyers who is particularly suited to this process that we do before the tribunal and who isn't. But of course, that's not necessarily knowledge that is available to people who aren't in a position to instruct solicitors. Yeah, totally. I mean, she makes a good point, though, doesn't she, about the training? I mean, do you think there's enough training in schools, or do you think they take it seriously enough? It really varies depending on the school, doesn't it? And I think one of the problems, particularly when you're talking about teaching assistants and LSAs, is that it's genuinely a very mixed bag. Sometimes your TA will be a fully qualified and highly experienced teacher who has chosen to take some time out or doesn't want to teach anymore. But the child who gets that TA as their dedicated one-to-one is essentially going to be getting one-to-one time with somebody who, to all intents and purposes, is a qualified teacher. But then other TAs, and there is nothing wrong with this in principle, other TAs will be people who perhaps have just left school, or they will be people who've just left university, people who are looking and fulfilling to do in between, people who don't necessarily have that specialist knowledge. And the thing is, many plans just won't specify the difference between those people. And so, yeah, as you say, it's a very mixed bag. You could be getting somebody who is, to all intents and purposes, a teacher. You could be getting somebody who is a really good LSA, but their child is not necessarily going to get the same experience as the child who has partnered with somebody who has teaching experience.
Yeah, and it's something we see as we'll now come to. We're going to watch the clip of when we went to Bournemouth, and I went on myself to Hemel Hempstead. We'll watch that clip together. But the interesting thing, I suppose, is that this lady, what she was saying about the problems that she had, is simply a tip of the iceberg, isn't it? Because we're seeing so many parents who are really upset about the way that their children are being supported. And she's saying, in her case, just a moment ago, that she feels that she's been discriminated against and the children are being discriminated against because of the lack of training that's in place in schools. I mean, school teachers will say, will deny that. But of course, it's a real problem in Wales, isn't it? Where in Wales, school teachers are being expected to draft the plans in the first place. So, I mean, if it's bad in England, goodness knows how bad it must be in Wales. But I suppose you and I went to Bournemouth, so let's go and see how we got on. This is about the fifth or sixth presentation I've done, having promised that I wanted to go around the country and talk to different people, hear real life stories about how difficult it is in different areas around the country that people are experiencing with their councils, getting the right support for their children. I'm on my way to Bournemouth now, and I'm looking forward to it. We've got quite a few people coming. I know a lot of questions are going to be around safety valve, which I talked about on the Education Magazine podcast that we've done. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of real concern about the drying up of funds in the world of special educational needs. And so here I am. I've been driving now for a few hours. I'm got up quite early this morning on my way to Bournemouth. And we're going today to the Hamworthy Club. And I'm going to be joined by a barrister, Charlotte Hadfield, who is a great friend of mine, one of the top barristers in education law and special educational needs in England and Wales. And Charlotte and I go back a long way. You know, we've done a lot of cases together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this evening. It should be quite good. The event organiser is Rachel Filmer. You may have seen her at a recent education podcast event where we talked about safety valve.
We've seen major issues with our SEND services here in BCP, and it's gradually gotten worse over the last few years. We've been really concerned about what impact a safety valve deal would have if that was signed. Lots of our parents need as much information as possible so that they can challenge the decisions that the local authority are making.
And I think the problem is that safety valve is just going to highlight much of the trickery that is existing around in different local authorities around the country, which we've seen for many years. It's just, I think, going to become more pronounced.
Yeah, absolutely. Now
that they are saying, well, we're going to... I don't think I've ever known a time when they've been so overt about it, when they're saying, actually, we are now going to reduce... They'd always keep that secret, but now they're actually saying, you know, we're going to reduce the HCPs. We are going to have 0 people in the specialist college. We're going to have 0 people in independent schools. I mean, I've not known that.
No, it's really shocking
in
to
the
read.
Past. No.
And most of the areas have done it in a really secretive way, so you don't actually know what they've agreed to, which is really concerning.
Yeah. So are we going to have many people here tonight?
I've got about 140, which is fantastic.
140. It's gone up.
We're hoping that these events will help inform parents about their rights and the law so that they can advocate for their children, which is really difficult in a system that's really quite complicated and opaque. And the only way you can do that is to really understand what your child's legal rights are. And Mike helping us with that is going to make a massive difference to our families.
And never has there been a time more important than now to actually become better informed. Because you need to be better informed to be able to face the challenges that the councils are going to put in your way. So that's why we're doing these events. That's why I was, pleased to come along and come to Bournemouth, because I knew there was a growing need in Bournemouth, not least due to the huge deficit Bournemouth are facing and the projection that it's going to be much worse. I think that's going to lead to worse situations on the ground. Absolutely. With many, many children and parents. I know that schools are worried. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I'm having calls from schools. I'm hearing more and more stories of cruel decision-making of a kind that we've not seen in many, many years, quite frankly.
I think they're kind of, in between a rock and a hard place, the local authorities, aren't they? They're we know what they need to provide, they don't have the funds to provide it, and it's leading to some decision making that causes real harm.
And they're rolling over.
Yeah.
They're just rolling over to the government's demands. Okay, we have to have money, so we're going to ask you to give us this money, but in return, we got to spend less money.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
We have a national Stop Safety Valve petition now, which launched a few days ago, and we're raising as much awareness as we possibly can about that. There's already 38 local authorities who are in agreements with the government. Some of them are already failing. They're not able to meet the targets that they've been set. So we are trying to tackle it at a national level and get the scheme ended.
And I think it's just not just about safety valve. Remember, safety valve is only raising the prominence of how many bad decisions are being made around the country. And it's not, it's nothing new. We've always known that local authorities have got a finite amount of money. What we're now knowing is that the local authorities are being open about how little they have got and what their strategies are going to be. So that the battle lines are now drawn. So I think at least we know what we have to deal with, and we know that there's going to be a procedure now that the councils are going to operate to make things difficult for many children. But some people will say, those who maybe contacted me 10 years ago, what's changed? Nothing's changed. No. We've always had to battle. So, and that's another reason why we're doing these seminars, I think, is because to really empower parents, not only just because of safety valve, but to empower parents anyway, because they're having to confront these battles in any event.
What I want to do is spend some time also addressing some of your questions, because there's lots of questions there. So, and I want to make sure I cover them, because otherwise I might have missed something. What happens when a local authority won't even amend Section A? Why is it not dealt with at tribunal? It's so outdated and of no value. Doesn't make sense to paint an outdated picture. Surely this is ethically, morally wrong, never mind unlawful. Why they don't really normally update Section A a lot. They leave it a lot, don't they? Because it doesn't really have a lot of statutory force. But I think it's important that Section A is updated. And the basic answer to that is that the local authority should be always, at all times, mindful of what your views are. Because Section 19 of the Children and Families Act actually says so. So you should be forcing the local authority, I would be doing, because you can't go to the tribunal, but if they hold their fort and say, well, I'm not going to amend Section A, you can't appeal it. It's judicial review. It doesn't make sense not to bring it up to date, because not only that, I think that's an overt example of a violation of the duty to take into account parental information and wishes.
It may well be. I mean, you might, if you're, there are a number of different, I've represented parents who have been through multiple tribunals and multiple complaints processes, and there is something to be said maybe for keeping your powder dry. That is a very lawyery perspective, mind you, because the truth is that because Section A isn't enforceable, I tend not to spend a lot of parental time or money on it, because there are other places that can be better directed. So unless a parent says to me, I'm concerned about the fact that Section A isn't up to date, I probably won't look at it, and the tribunal won't look at it because they don't have jurisdiction over it. So I think if it's really grossly misrepresentative of you or your child, that's one thing. But there might be something to be said for not devoting a huge amount of energy to errors which are frustrating for you as a parent because you're the expert in your child, but probably are not going to make a huge amount of difference to things in the long run. And that is a very personal judgment.
Thank you very much.
Well, the session was really good this evening, and I really enjoyed meeting so many wonderful people.
My name's Gemma. I've attended Michael Charles's evening tonight. It's by far the most valuable information that we've ever had, and if anyone can ever attend an event like this, it's a must, so please do.
Hello, I'm Nikki, and I'm here in Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and we've just had the most amazing talk by Michael Charles, which has really been helpful and beneficial to a lot of parents.
Why do I do these things? Well, I ask myself that. Why do I do these events? Well, simple. I put myself through these long, arduous journeys, but it's all worth it because I see so many people, so many children, so many parents. I find it really enriching, to be honest. I mean, I love my job. I love what I do. I love representing people with special educational needs. I like representing students at universities. They all have really intriguing, interesting, but most importantly, deserving cases. And so it's just, to be honest with you, I've always said it's an honour really to do it. There's a massive community in the world of special educational needs. I mean, you see, legal aid has pretty much dried up, and there's not a lot of support out there for so many people in the predicament, and that's really concerning. And so I suspect that they come along, they want to hear what I have to say. I give them advice, I give them some guidance on some useful tips on how to handle local authorities who are making bad decisions. So I think that the community, I'm thrilled that the community follow me. So many people follow me, and I'm honoured by that, and but also thrilled by that, because it gives me a voice. It gives me an opportunity to try and, as more people follow, I suppose you'll get a greater voice in politics, where I may be able to have politicians listening to us, maybe eventually having a say. And making a change, making a difference. I mean, the law makes a difference, but of course, politically, if we can have some influence politically too, we can change the law. And I think that's what's wonderful about developing an audience like I've managed to develop on Facebook and on social media. I think that's really useful. I think the more people that follow in one place, the more voice that we can all have. I tend to talk about things that are newsworthy, things that are actually happening in the world, so that people recognise and have a platform to make their voices heard. So there we are. It's a great thing. In 2022, I promised that I would return to visiting different areas around the country to meet with and speak to parents and young people who might be facing challenges up against their local authority. I've now visited various places including Leeds, Cheltenham, Swansea, Birmingham, Liverpool, Guildford, and I've been absolutely thrilled to have met so many great people. Their stories might be different, but the themes appear similar in that they have all experienced the impact of dreadful local authority decision making. I was thrilled with the turnout in Bournemouth. This is plainly an area where I believe many individuals may end up with sizable claims against their local authority for poor, but even perhaps negligent decision making. Next on my tour, I'm visiting Hemel Hempstead, when I'm due to speak to a much smaller audience within a venue off a main road at the Holiday Inn. Now, I also know that you've asked me some questions, right? There's questions, I know. I want to make sure I talk too long, won't I? So I'll answer the questions. I've got a list of questions here, so I'm going to go through them. The first one is, my daughter is currently in a mainstream secondary school and starting GCSEs next year, so I want to get it right before they start. Yeah. So, she's currently being assessed for ADHD and autism, but they are quite sure it's ADHD, and the school is aware as they had to fill out questionnaires. What I want to know is, do the school legally need to treat it as a diagnosis and provide an SEN plan and reasonable adjustments while we wait, as my daughter finds it hard to sit still for long periods and can get overwhelmed and need a bit of time out, somewhere quieter with all the mock exams they're doing. I know she won't qualify for the HCP as she's too high functioning, and I don't think needs therapy provision. Well, first, can I just abandon the myth that someone who's high functioning doesn't get an EHCP? That's certainly number one. But the obligation to make reasonable adjustments doesn't require a diagnosis. Not at all. I mean, that might surprise you. You don't have to have a diagnosis. You simply have to present as a person with disability who has needs. So you can say, you are aware that for example, you could even say, my child doesn't have, there's no medical, for example, there's no medical diagnosis of PDA, for example. It's not medically recognised in this case, in this country. But do you know what PDA is? Pathological demand avoidance. But that doesn't mean that the school can't make or shouldn't make adjustments for that child's presentation, because there could be a whole range of things that a child might need. You hear a lot of people say, oh, well, this particular theory, this particular approach is the approach I would like to use for my child, and they say, well, it's not a recognised approach. Do you see that? I see it in talk tools, for example, in dyspraxia. They say, oh, we're not going to use that. Or sensory integration therapy is another one. Oh, yeah, use that. Sensory visual processing. Doesn't exist, some people say. Whatever works for your child is what the child should have. It doesn't matter whether it's a formal, recognised strategy, because each child is different. They're unique. That's what's wonderful about children. One size doesn't fit all. So you look at what the individual requires. So the answer to that question, fine fellow or fine lady, is that you don't have to have a diagnosis, and yes, the school should be complying with the adjustments due to you.
I've not found anybody that's as informed as him, and he's needed desperately in Hertfordshire. And he's got to stop going to Bournemouth.
I learned loads at this event actually. I mean, we've been in the process ourselves with our son, unfortunately fighting with authorities. So we know a bit, but to hear Mike reciting laws and sections and everything that we can then further research is really useful.
I didn't know about this. My friend said, hey, do you fancy coming with me tonight? So she got a ticket and I've come along, and I'm so glad I did. I help run a coffee morning for parents with special needs in our local area, and this has given me a lot of information. I will go and watch the podcast so that I'll be able to inform other parents what they do and how to do it. It's been amazing.
I found the event really good. There was lots of useful information there and quite a little bit of legislation too, so I was able to make some great notes. The highlight, I think, for me of this was learning more about the educational needs process.
People at these events ask so many questions. I mean, they fire at you so many questions. I find it really, it's quite academically challenging sometimes, I suppose, but I've been doing it for so long, so I find it really relatively quite straightforward, to be honest. But lots and lots of questions. People will ask questions about their own predicament. There'll be some unique questions in there, because some people will have unique questions because it arises out of their particular areas where they're living. Different councils have different strategies. So that's another reason why I find it so enriching, because doing these things, we're talking about real life stories in different areas. To be honest, I've been doing this job a long time, right? But I can tell you that there is always a moment where someone will still shock me. It's rare to get shocked, some people might say, but not in the world of special educational needs. Totally thrilled that I've had the chance and the opportunity to have developed really meaningful friendships with so many people who I truly and honestly believe are still now my friends. I've managed to work with the family to help make a real change for their children. And to be honest with you, there's no job in the world that's better than that, let's be honest. So how did it make me feel when I hear the wonderful stories? I mean, well, I remember I went to a hotel once and parked a car outside the hotel door, and it turned out I was told off, but actually happened, the person who was telling me off was the hotel manager, and the hotel manager happened to be one of the children that I represented when they were struggling in a special needs school. And look at that, what a difference. So I think I managed to, I was allowed to park there for the rest of the moment, for the rest of the day, which is great. So no, there are some perks in this job. You meet friends, you get some perks, and no, it's fantastic. I love to make a difference in people's lives, and it's just, for me, it's a great honour. Well, I think we're going to be doing some more podcasts. We're certainly going to concentrate on the Education Magazine podcast so that we get our message out. More parents will be informed that way. We're hoping to have some question times, some live question times, live online, so that people can post their questions. And we're hoping to have a question time feature, so that we're going to have like a panel of opposing parties, maybe a local authority representative, maybe a politician. Who knows? We've asked the leader of the Welsh Welsh Labour Party, Vaughan Gethin, to come along to the Cardiff event. Whether or not he does, I don't know. But we've asked him to hear the stories of that parents are experiencing, so he can for himself see what's going on in Wales. We've asked, we're going to ask councils, different local authority representatives to come along, and maybe even barristers and solicitors on the opposing side. Let's have a debate. Let's see what we can do together. Perhaps ultimately we can try and find some room for consensus. So for me, it's about spreading the word, trying to achieve less cruel decision making, more meaningful decisions, carefully thought out decisions that are properly informed by the evidence. That's what I want to achieve. parents are the best experts for their children. They know what's best, and they should have a stronger voice, and they should be listened to. They're not listened to, and that's the thing. And I think that what these seminars are doing and what these podcasts are doing, and what I'm trying to achieve, is a platform to enable more parents to be listened to. And so the issues that are, really hurting families are more pronounced and more vocal and more pertinent in the minds of the politicians, so that we can end up getting some change. So, Charlotte, tell me, what did you think you got out of the seminar that we did together?
I thought it was really, really lovely to be able to people's concerns outside of the very structured conferences that I do with people I'm representing, and understand exactly what people find difficult about this process, because it's often not what I would necessarily expect people to be asking about. So it was even educational for me. Well,
Charlotte, we did enjoy that trip, didn't we? And we met some wonderful people, didn't we? And they were all so thankful at the end. You notice all those testimonials?
I did. I thought that people were very appreciative of what they heard. It was really lovely to see.
And do you think it might be a bit too big-headed of me to say how nice one particular person was?
I think...
Oh, go on. Can I cut it in? Go on then, let's watch it.
I found the event tonight fantastic. I'm here with my wife. We first started working with Mike about 2 years ago now. We were having challenges with the local authority and my son's school, getting the right educational healthcare plan in place and the provisions that he needed. We got a recommendation to get in touch with Mike, and it's been a really kind of challenging journey, but Mike's helped us navigate that, and we're at a point of seeing some very positive, successful steps forward for my son. Having attended the event this evening, it'd have been fantastic if I'd have had this event 2 years ago, to be honest. So much insight, Mike's brought a lot of clarity, and this kind of support that we would have really benefited from when we started out on our own particular journey. What I thought was really interesting being here this evening is being amongst so many people who've been on the same journey that we have. There's a tendency when you're in this situation with your own child that you feel very isolated and that you're in this kind of fight, for want of a better expression, alone. Being here tonight and seeing just so many other parents in the room expressing the same kind of challenges that they're having with their own children is really enriching. Feels you're really not alone. And I think Mike's been really, really consistent with the coaching and the support he's given us. And I hope many people take a lot of that valued insight away with them this evening. It'll truly help them on their journey. The highlight from the event tonight was Mike himself. Anybody that's had the pleasure to work with Mike will know he's a master of his domain. He's really reassuring in terms of the guidance and the coaching that he gives. But he's very human-centric. He brings everything to life through his own experiences. And you'll often hear him say that he makes judgment based on himself as a parent who's been in the shoes that we have, and we found that advice and counsel so supportive. So as well as being insightful, educational, and being reassuring, Mike always brings that humour, and he's a very warm individual to be around. And I hope that he continues to fight on behalf of many families for the injustice that's out there around our children and what they need in terms of their basic educational rights. So, super event. Thank you again, Mike, for hosting, and may you continue to do so.
Charlotte, my head is too big for this room.
He was very, very grateful for the work that you've done, and it was really nice to see.
No, I mean, such wonderful, wonderful person and such wonderful people. I'm so honoured and privileged to have helped. And honestly, I got to say, thank you so much. That was so kind of all of you who were so thankful and so appreciative of the productions that we do and the presentations that we give. And I hope to see you again at another education event, which I'm going to be doing. We're going to be doing a few more. And Charlotte, you probably remember, Manchester won the poll. So we're going to have Manchester ending the season. We're going to be doing a presentation there to the good people in Manchester. And I think we're also going to be squeezing one more in just before that, I'm not going to tell you because I'll announce it on Facebook. But thank you all for watching this Education Magazine broadcast, and I'll see you again shortly.